There are moments in a club's history when the noise from outside drowns out any whistle, any chant, any past celebration. These are dense moments, loaded with expectations and doubts, when emotion blends with business, when every decision seems to open two opposing paths. And today, Real Madrid is living through one of those moments. Results are shaky, pressure is mounting, and questions are flying from every corner. But there's one that resonates above all others. Is keeping Xabi Alonso a sporting expense or a strategic investment for the global franchise that is Real Madrid? Because that's the real starting point. Talking about Madrid solely as a football club falls short. It's reducing a billion-dollar giant to 90 minutes of grass and Sunday anxieties. Real Madrid is a brand with planetary impact, a cultural enterprise that sells history, identity, prestige, modernity. Every jersey, every tour, every sponsorship, every event carries the weight of a narrative built over more than a century. And in the midst of this ecosystem, the figure of Xabi Alonso emerges, not just as a coach, but as a valuable asset within a strategy bigger than any isolated match. So today, in this analysis, we're going to look at the other side of the game. We're going to set the ball aside to talk about figures, structures, risks, perceptions, corporations, and global markets. Because Real Madrid doesn't compete solely for points, it competes for relevance, for value, for economic leadership. And on that board, every move matters. Every decision has a price. And every coach also represents a business bet. Welcome to Sport Rich, where success meets luxury. Subscribe and step inside the world of the richest athletes on the planet. To understand the magnitude of the debate, we first need a clear picture of the financial monster that is Real Madrid. We're talking about an institution that in the 2024/25 season generated revenue of 1.185 billion euros, not counting player sales, a figure that doesn't just surprise, it terrifies. It's confirmation that Madrid operates at a level that few clubs can even imagine. That season closed with a net profit of 24.3 million euros. In a European context where many clubs exist between debt, deficit, and forced sales, Madrid is the world of sports. Its liquidity allows it to maneuver without distress. Debt is controlled beyond the gigantic stadium project, which isn't passive spending but investment with returns. This landscape demonstrates something essential. Real Madrid doesn't depend on winning every weekend to survive. Of course, winning helps and amplifies everything, but the club's economic structure has enough layers to absorb temporary sporting storms. That said, this stability isn't an invitation to carelessness, but rather a reminder that Madrid operates in a business system where every decision affects the global perception of the brand. And here arises the first inevitable question. How many clubs can boast of generating over €1 billion per year in revenue? And if you have that financial muscle, can you afford to take short-term sporting risks because your structure protects you? But if there's one element that completely changes the game, it's the renovated Santiago Bernabéu stadium. Its transformation wasn't an aesthetic whim. It was a strategic reconfiguration that cost around 1.347 billion euros projected, an investment that many would compare to the renovation of an entire city. The new Bernabéu isn't a football field. It's an ecosystem of experiences, a premium shopping center, a high-end museum, a concert amphitheater, a tourist temple that operates 365 days a year. Its retractable roof, its movable pitch, its VIP areas, its hospitality, its business spaces, and its total modernization turn it into a machine of diversified revenue. For a club that has decided to compete in the world of global entertainment, this diversification is vital. The stadium no longer lives solely off football. It lives off events, experiences, constant consumption. This significantly reduces dependence on sporting performance. If the team loses 2 matches, the stadium keeps generating millions. If the sporting streak falters, concerts, tours, and tourism keep the revenue flow afloat. The real question is, does a modern stadium act as a financial shield in complicated sporting moments? And even more, what's a stadium worth that produces money every day versus one that only operates every 2 weeks? Even with that economic strength, there are risks that no spreadsheet can ignore. When sporting performance drops, intangibles begin to suffer. Attendance may decrease, even if slightly. Sponsors may become uneasy. The global image may show cracks. Jersey sales may cool off. The symbolic weight of the club, which has so often been its main argument, can erode. Real Madrid is an entity whose brand is tied to excellence. It doesn't just win, it represents winning. At this club, failing has a price that goes beyond sports, and this translates into indirect economic risks, into perceptions that can alter business relationships, into narratives that affect the institution's prestige. Moreover, firing a coach isn't free. It involves severance pay, structural disorder, restarting a project, accepting that the transition may cause more instability. From a financial standpoint, constantly changing coaches is a disguised expense that fans tend to forget. And then another reflection arises. Is it more expensive to sustain an unstable project than to maintain one with solid foundations, even if it goes through bad streaks? Xabi Alonso isn't an ordinary coach. He represents many simultaneous layers of value. He's a symbol of Madrid identity, an elegant communicator, a coach with long-term vision, a profile that projects stability even amid chaos. From a business angle, these qualities aren't ornamental. They're assets. Keeping Xabi wouldn't just be a sporting act. It would be a bet on project coherence, on continuity, on a convincing narrative for sponsors, global partners, and international markets. When a club the size of Real Madrid has a recognizable project, it conveys credibility, and credibility translates into money. Evaluating Xabi solely by his salary and the league position would be a reductionist view. His true impact can be reflected in brand value, institutional tranquility, investor confidence, global media perception. The question then stops being sporting. Can a coach become a business asset that provides stability and intangible value? What if continuity, rather than a conservative bet, were an intelligent way to maximize the club's overall performance? If Real Madrid decided not to bet on Xabi, it would enter a costly scenario. Not only would severance be paid, project continuity would also be lost, identity under construction, internal cohesion, and any new coach would need time, adjustments, an adapted squad, new roles. That transition period could cost points, but also money and image. It's true that the club has the capacity to survive almost any crisis, partly thanks to the new stadium and its economic diversification. However, there's a risk that the club slides too far toward the logic of spectacle, where sporting matters are relegated to the background. And at that point arises the central dilemma of modern football. What happens when a global franchise depends more on its extra revenue than on its sporting essence? Finding balance is key, knowing when to renew and when to conserve, knowing when to take sporting risks and when to prioritize institutional stability. Here arise two questions that capture the soul of the debate. Can a club sustain a model too focused on commercial matters if sporting results don't accompany it? And to what extent can a stadium full of events replace the emotional value of winning? None of this makes sense without the fans. The fan, in the 21st century, is both supporter and consumer. They buy jerseys, tickets, souvenirs, VIP experiences. They take stadium tours, post photos, move social media, attract brands. The fan is customer, ambassador, emotional investor, and business cog. A modern stadium doesn't just give them a seat, it gives them experiences, memories, shared identity. Madrid understands this, but every sporting and business decision affects that experience. It's the fan who decides whether the brand holds up, whether the narrative remains alive, whether the project deserves trust. That's why the final question is almost inevitable. What does a fan value more today? Immediate glory or a global experience that makes them feel part of something bigger? Would you be willing to pay more to live a complete universe around the club, even if the team doesn't always win? When we look at the entire panorama, it becomes evident that keeping Xabi Alonso isn't a simple matter of victories or defeats. It's a decision that touches finances, global perception, institutional stability, brand identity, and business strategy. In a club that operates as a global franchise, a coach can be more than a coach. They can be part of the scaffolding that sustains the project's economic value. That's why the conclusion isn't closed. At some moments, betting on stability is the best investment. At others, a rupture may seem necessary. But in the current context, with a solid club, a stadium turned into a revenue engine, and a market that rewards coherence, keeping Xabi may represent something bigger than a sporting expense. It can be an investment in the narrative of the future, a bet on building, not just reacting, and a signal that Real Madrid is thinking beyond the immediate result. Now the final word is yours. What matters more to you, winning now, or building a solid franchise for the coming decades?